Britain's historic decision to leave the European Union has sent shockwaves across the world. Global financial markets went into freefall. The pound fell over 10% to its lowest level in 30 years, and the European Union stands to lose about 1/6 of its economic output. All this prompting an emotional British Prime Minister David Cameron to announce that he will step down by October.
I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction. I will do everything I can as Prime Minister to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months. But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination. I love this country and I feel honoured to have served it.
This is the final result. It was a turbulent night with both sides in dead heat until the Leave camp pulled off several surprising wins towards the end. Here's a closer look at how the regions voted. The Leave campaign triumphed right across England and Wales. Remain won in big cities like London, Liverpool and Oxford. Scotland is unwilling to follow the rest of the country out of the European Union, and already politicians there are calling for a new vote on independence from the United Kingdom. Overall turnout was nearly 72%. That's the highest for a nationwide vote in over 20 years.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
Nigel Farage is one of the leading proponents of Brexit. His anti-immigration, anti-establishment party was a key catalyst in forcing Mr. Cameron to call the referendum 3 years ago. But there were jeers for another Brexit frontman. Former London Mayor Boris Johnson has always been a divisive figure. He's being called a traitor, but is also widely tipped to replace Mr. Cameron as the next Prime Minister.
I believe we now have a glorious opportunity. We can pass our laws and set our taxes entirely according to the needs of the UK economy. We can control our own borders in a way that is not discriminatory, but fair and balanced, and take the wind out of the sails of the extremists and those who would play politics with immigration.
Mr. Johnson has also given the assurance that there's no need to rush the process of pulling out of the European Union. Exit proceedings can range from 2 years to a decade, and a country cannot rejoin without the consent of all member states. One of the main fears in many European capitals is that the result today could trigger a domino effect of referendums in other countries. Europe is in uncharted waters, Britain being the first country ever to leave the bloc. But Mr. Cameron is assuring the world that the British economy remains strong.
I would reassure those markets and investors that Britain's economy is fundamentally strong. And I would also reassure Brits living in European countries and European citizens living here that there will be no immediate changes in your circumstances. There will be no initial change in the way our people can travel, in the way our goods can move, or the way our services can be sold.
But the fact is that quitting the 28-member alliance could cost Britain its access to the European Union's barrier-free single market. It also means that Britain must seek new trade accords with countries around the world. For its part, the European Union faces not only the exit of its second-largest economy, but also a powerful military and a member with the UN Security Council veto. The coming days and weeks will be crucial for European leaders as they need to discuss the grouping's next steps.
We are very sad about the decision of the voters in the United Kingdom. We are entering in turbulent times. We need stability, and that's what I hope what will be the outcome of the next meetings.
The European Parliament will be holding an emergency session next week. Separately, the European Union will also meet without Britain next week to assess its future.
I can say that we are determined to keep our unity as 27. It's true that the past years have been the most difficult ones in the history of our union, but I always remember what my father used to tell me: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
The European Union's founding members, including France, Italy and Germany, have expressed regret at Britain's decision to leave. But some say that this is a chance for Europe to renew some of its policies.
La decisione presa dagli elettori britannici è una decisione che deve suonare come una sveglia per l'Europa e quindi come un'occasione di rilancio di politiche comuni per la crescita, di politiche migratorie comuni, di politiche di difesa comuni.
The pound took a pounding as soon as the Leave votes gained momentum, and world stocks are now headed for one of the biggest slumps on record. Asian markets were down across the board. German stocks fell as much as 10% on the open, while the London market plunged 7.5%. Billions of dollars have been wiped off the value of European companies, with London's big banks sinking the most since the 2008 financial crisis. The UK's central bank is promising £250 billion of support if needed to steady the ship.
Volatility rippled through global markets as the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. The British pound sterling weakened amid the uncertainty, falling almost 9% against the greenback to 1.39, its lowest in 31 years. Local markets were not spared as the Straits Times index closed 2% lower as news of the Leave vote trickled in from this afternoon. Of the various asset classes, market watchers say equities are likely to be affected the most. Given Singapore's status as a small and open economy, the city-state remains vulnerable to global market volatility. However, one analyst says the Sing dollar could receive a boost amid the turmoil compared to its regional counterparts.
We probably think that Singapore might be a safe haven in the meantime if there is a crisis. So I think that doesn't mean that the dollar Sing will not go up, but I think it will outperform against other currencies. But in terms of like the equity market, I think it will hit quite bad. I think the interest rate for most of the Asian countries, I think they will continue to cut interest rates. Yeah.
With the falling British currency, a lot of questions are being asked about the potential of the UK real estate market for investment. London's property market is one of the most active in the world. Property consultancy Chesterton's predicts short-term headwinds. Demand for office space in London, for instance, will be affected by the UK leaving the EU. However, it adds that London is a perennial favourite among international investors and could represent an opportunity for some.
We think the downside in terms of any price softening for London properties in particular will be fairly limited, fairly resilient. It might just come down to a tune of about maybe 5-10% before it starts to see a bottoming out process, mainly because there's a lot of liquidity looking and eyeing on London properties at this point in time.
Singapore's central bank moved to reassure markets, saying the liquidity positions of Singapore banks remains healthy amid the market turmoil, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore stands ready to provide additional liquidity if necessary.